Okay, so hi everyone. We start with chapter 9, talking about the confidence interval. Um, Confidence interval means that first we talk about the point estimate. What is point estimate? Remember we said from the sample always we predict about the population because we don't know about the population, right? And sometimes the population is so big, so we get sample from that population, and after that we do the study, or we predict about the population. So point estimate is whatever we have from the sample. For example, we have mean from the sample, we can guess or we can predict about the mean of the population. Or look at this symbol. Of course, I ask you to memorize which one is for population, which one for sample. I hope you did. So from the mean of the sample, we can predict about the mean of the population. From the standard deviation, variance, and population proportion, of course, we can predict about sample proportion. We can predict about the population proportion, right? So we create the confidence interval because it's not exactly whatever is sample mean or standard deviation is exactly population standard deviation or mean. It means that it's going to be around that area. So to reach to that area, normally from the sample, when we want to predict about the population, we try to consider a range that, okay, this is the mean. So the population mean going to be around this. Because of that, we create the margin. An interval, and we have of course formula for that to do, and that's the reason, because we want to create that interval that we predict that the population mean or standard deviation is going to be around that point. We cannot exactly say, okay, sample mean is 10, so population mean also is 10, right? We said, okay, between, for example, 9 to 11, around that mean. Then normally few things help us to predict, of course, is the sample size, how big or small is the sample, and how the population is homogeneous or they are different. Of course, we try to get the exact sample from the population, right? And the level of confidence, I think you already learned the level of confidence, how confident you are. You are with 90% confidence, you are 95% confidence. So that one also affected, that we find the Z from the table. So we have a formula, as you can see here. This is the formula that we use. We have mean from the sample, and after that, because that's a point estimate, right? The confidence interval, that from that confidence we get the Z from the Z table distribution, standard deviation of the population, and of course our sample size, that is n. So if we have all these things, we can predict about we can find that interval. What does it mean exactly? What is the interpretation? For the 95% confidence interval, about 95% of the similarly constructed interval will contain the parameter being estimated. This means that when we calculate from that sample, any sample that we get, normally we get a lot of sample from the population, definitely 95% of the time, or 95% of that sample have population mean. So we can, of course, we can guess. If you look at here, you see that they have so many sample, and population mean, if we get the bigger one as a population mean is in all this interval that we created here. This is all the sample that we already get. So we can predict. So this is the question, the first example. They asked the American Management Association survey middle manager, and after that a random sample of 49 manager revealed a sample mean is 45,420, and the standard deviation is 2050. Now they want to know what is the point estimate. We said point estimate is something from the sample that we can predict about the population. So here, if we consider this definition, here the sample mean going to be, of course, point estimate, because from sample mean and standard deviation, of course, but here point estimate is sample mean. We can predict about the population. And look at the second. So this is the answer for the first one. Look at the second one. They said, what is the reasonable range of value for the population mean? It means that find that interval that exactly from the sample you're predicting for the population. So now you have to find that interval based on the formula that we have. So we, look at the formula. What we have here is our mean, the confidence interval, standard deviation, and n. So put everything in the formula. Of course, this is the graph that we already mentioned about it. And how to draw this graph, don't forget that always that 95%, 99% or 90% is in the middle. So the other two sides is the remaining. For example, the 5% will be divided between right and left in the end always. And the main thing that we have 90% or 95 is always in the middle, just the remaining is in the side. So put everything in the formula, you reach to the 40, your mean plus minus that amount, the margin that you find. I will continue with the next slide.